I've seen a number of videos where people use drag knives to cut all kind of materials like leather. The problem is, unless you've got a planned and dedicated use for a drag knife, the price point can be a real drag. Sorry, I just couldn't resist. Most drag knives that are commonly available are typically above $100, which kind of puts it outside of just hobbyist or experimental use. Nobody wants to put down that kind of money and then buy something and not have it work out for them. I was therefore excited to see Sainsmart release a drag knife. I was also excited that they release it at an affordable price. I was also happy to see them release it on Amazon, where you have all of the perks of free shipping as well as the convenience of easy returns. The question is, where do you use a drag knife and what materials does it work best for? A lot of hobbyists and makers and other creative people probably already have a laser or maybe even a cutting machine like a Cricut, a Cameo, or my personal preference, the Brothers Scan and Cut. There is also a lot of crossover between these machines. For example, you can mount a laser or even a plotting pen on your CNC. The drag knife works in principle a lot like a cutting machine, minus all the frills and fusses that you typically get for these machines on the software side. Where a drag knife really is a cut above cutting machines are: one, you have a lot more downward force on the Z-axis due to the stronger stepper motors, and two, a much larger area for working with your material. So let's talk about the materials. I certainly won't try to cut something that a laser or a cutting machine can do a better job of cutting. But there are some materials that you can cut with either a laser or a cutting machine. For example, as we've already seen, leather is well suited for cutting with a drag knife. Or plastics. Plastics often are toxic when lasered and too thick for a machine cutter to cut. Now, I personally won't use a drag knife for plastics. If you already have a CNC, I think you're much better off just using an upcut bit to cut either plastic or acrylic. Cardboard is another good material if you don't like that burnt smell or burnt edge look when using a laser. If so, then a drag knife can work well for cutting out shapes. Sainsmart also gives us a couple of other examples. I wanted to pick a material that would make for a good project. Wood veneer is certainly one I can think of, for example, to make some bags for cell phone cases. I don't work with fabric, so I can't really speak to it. I've seen videos where they use a drag knife to cut corrugated plastic to make these happy birthday yard signs you see nowadays. After Easter or Christmas, a lot of churches typically have these in excess, so you can get them for cheap if you want to get that yard sign business of yours off the ground. After an election is also another good time to harvest these economically. I in fact gave this a shot and was able to cut out a letter A as a test. But I was looking for something else and the magnet sheet caught my eye, and I thought a fridge magnet or bumper sticker is a good idea. A quick search on Amazon revealed that you can get these fairly cheaply, and I got these 8x10-inch 4-pack sheets to give it a shot. As for the design, I decided to use this classic photo of Albert Einstein. After spending an hour or so in Photoshop, I came up with the following designs. One for the fridge magnet and one for the bumper sticker. In order to create the G-code for the CNC, I used Desk Proto for creating my toolpaths after sizing the designs appropriately. The magnet sheet is less than 2 millimeters thick, not really 16 millimeters as the product information shows. Somebody probably just left out a comma between the 1 and the 6. I didn't want to clamp the magnet sheet down directly onto the spoil board, as I was concerned that it may still move around as a drag knife did its thing. I therefore reverted to the double-sided tape method. I taped the bottom of the magnet sheet with double tape layer and peeled off the other side of the tape and then stuck it onto the MDF, a spare piece that I had. Next, I clamped down the MDF onto the spoil board, aligned my axis and began cutting. The whole operation was fairly quick. I zeroed my locations and then began cutting. I set the feed rate at 800 millimeters, which seemed to work just fine. The whole operation was fairly quick and I finished in less than a minute. After removing the magnetic sheet from the CNC, I removed the cut pieces from the MDF. The cut went all the way through the magnetic layer and the removal was quite easy. You just have to make sure that you cut through all the way the first time. After that, I removed the double-sided tape on the back. I now had my magnetic sheet cut in the shape that I wanted. What I had to do next was cut the paper I was going to stick on the front of the magnetic sheet. For this purpose, I used the Brothers Scan and Cut. If you don't have a cutting machine, that's okay. As my outline is not that complex, you can probably cut the shape out with just a scissor. If you want to, you can probably even use a drag knife for this, if you can align the print sheet correctly. But since I have the Brothers Scan and Cut, I just use that as it is great for this type of paper cutting. The next step was to stick the paper that was cut by the cutting machine onto the magnetic sheet. This, at least for me, is often more easily said than done, as the process can be very unforgiving. You basically get one shot to get it right, and if you miss a line, it's basically game over. So I took a deep breath, I said a prayer, and I locked in. The first one was slightly misaligned, but the second one came out great. I was very happy with the end result. The bumper sticker, however, would be exposed to weather, so I printed it on waterproof paper and applied a clear layer of sticker paper over it to give it some protection against the elements. The bumper sticker came out great as well. Not everything I experiment with makes it to my online stores, but I decided to put it on both my Etsy and web store. At the end of the day, I really like the Sainsmart drag knife. I'm also happy that Sainsmart decided to use standard size blades and not a blade that is designed specifically to work only with their drag knife that you can only buy from them. I also appreciate that you can buy some spare parts for the drag knife. I got a little too ambitious and bent the shaft when cutting as I plunged too deep into the material and all the way into the spoil board. But you can buy a replacement shaft from them or from the Sainsmart store on Amazon at a reasonable cost. If you are in the market for a drag knife, I would definitely give the Sainsmart a shot. I think it's a great addition to a CNC and opens the door for new opportunities and different projects, all at a low cost. I covered a lot of information here quickly. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. See you soon, stay creative, and God bless.